The man no one saw. The automatic doors hissed open as the cold wind blew through the entrance of brookstone plaza. People hurried in and out with steaming coffee cups and phone calls pressed to their ears. No one noticed the man in the wheelchair, quietly rolling across the polished lobby floor. His beanie was pulled low over his head, and his flannel coat looked worn from too many winters. Moved slowly, not because he couldn't go faster, but because he had nowhere urgent to be. No one recognized him. No one looked twice, and that was exactly what he wanted. Keanu Reeves had chosen to disappear for now. His hair was longer than usual, his beard a little thicker, his body tired and still healing. Weeks ago, he had undergone spinal surgery after an accident on a movie set. Stunt had gone wrong. A cable snapped, fell from 12 feet onto concrete. A miracle. He survived, but the recovery was long, silent, painful. Had spent weeks in a hospital bed, staring at white ceilings. No, he was in a wheelchair by doctor's orders, only temporary, they said, but the world treated him like it was forever. Keanu didn't mind the chair. What he minded was how invisible it made him. People who once clapped for him now looked away. He had come to Brookstone Plaza today for one reason: to see something for himself on paper. He was just an investor in the building, and reality was the majority owner had bought the property years ago under a private trust to avoid attention. He let a management company handle the day today, but recently I started hearing things, more stories from workers, whispers from tenants that the management team had changed, and not for the better. So he came in person, unannounced, cameras, no assistance, no one to buffer. The truth rolled slowly toward the front desk. Receptionist didn't even look up. Maintenance is through the side entrance, she muttered. Keanu didn't answer, simply rolled past her toward the elevator. That's when he heard a loud bark from across the lobby. Hey, you it. Are you doing? A tall man in a navy suit strode across the marble floor, his face tight with irritation. His name tag read Michael, head of operations. Keanu turned slowly, his voice calm. I'm going up to the 12th floor. Michael frowned. You can't just come in here like that. Well, are you visiting? I'm here to see how things are run. The manager laughed dryly. This isn't a charity. You don't just wheel in and inspect the place. Now please leave before I call security. Other people in the lobby glanced over, some stared, others looked away quickly. Air grew heavy. Keanu didn't flinch, looked the man in the eye, and said quietly, you don't recognize me, do you? Michael crossed his arms. Should I? Keanu reached into his coat and pulled out a small folded document. They handed it over. Michael opened it and read the first line. His face paled. This can't be real. It's signed by your boss's boss. Keanu said softly, and yes, it's very really own this building. Michael stumbled backwards slightly, his voice stammering. I didn't know. That's the problem, Keanu said. You didn't even care to ask. You just saw a man in a wheelchair and assumed he didn't belong. Silence swallowed the lobby. The receptionist stood frozen. People on their phones stopped mid-sentence. Keanu turned his chair and began moving toward the elevator again. I'll be taking a full walk through today, he said without raising his voice, and tomorrow we'll talk about your job performance. The elevator doors opened, rolled in city as the doors closed. Saw Michael standing there, his mouth hanging open, his face drained of color. The 12th floor was empty, a long hallway of office suites with glass walls and potted plants. Keanu rolled slowly past them. He watched how employees interacted. Some smiled, some looked stressed, but no one seemed cruel. It was quiet. Tunnel. He reached room 112. A cleaning cart sat outside, and a woman was mopping the floor on her knees, not with a mop stick, with her hands. Keanu frowned. Ma'am, do you need help? The woman looked up, startled. She had dark skin and tired eyes, her hands red from the harsh soap. I'm okay, sir. They only gave me the bouquet, no tools left in the closet to dye. Didn't want to lose my hours again? He asked gently. She looked down and nodded. They said I take too many breaks, but I only sit because my back hurts, so now they check on me every hour if I'm not moving. They docked my time. Keanu's chest tightened. Who's they? The building manager, she whispered. The new ones, they said. Too many old workers are lazy and they want fresh faces. Keanu knelt from his chair and placed his hand on hers. What's your name? Dahlia. Dahlia. Ray. Not lazy, you are braver, strong, and tomorrow morning you'll have new gloves, a proper mop, and a seat to rest when you need it. She stared at him confused. Who are you? He smiled. Just someone who sees what others ignore. He continued down the hallroom. By room, floor by floor, found broken heating vents in tenant units, saw mold under ceiling Tiles noticed the staff kitchen had no clean water dispenser, but the manager's office had a brand new espresso machine. Took notice quietly through 1 point. He rolled past a conference room and overheard shouting. A young intern stood shaking, while an older man berated him for a small mistake. You'll never make it if you keep being soft. Keanu tapped on the glass. The older man turned annoyed. What do you want? To remind you that the way you speak to people becomes the way they speak to themselves. Choose carefully. The older man scoffed, but the intern smiled a little. After hours of rolling through the building, Keanu returned to the lobby. Michelle was Ghanaianly. The receptionist remained stood up quickly. Sir, I'm so sorry, I didn't recognize you earlier. He nodded. I'm not here for apologies. I'm here for truth. Will you be back? Yes, but not as a visitor from now. O'Neill be working from here once a week and watching how people are treated every day. She looked nervous, but he smiled kindly. People make mistakes. What matters is how we correct them. He rolled out the front door as the sun began to set. Wind cold again, but the warmth inside him rising. Had seen enough for one day, but this was only the beginning. What they didn't know was that Keanu Reeves hadn't come back to take revenge. He had come back to restore dignity, and tomorrow everything would change. New rules, new ice. The next morning at exactly 8 o'clock, the doors of Brookstone Plaza opened again. This time, the man in the wheelchair wasn't ignorant. Same receptionist, who barely glanced at him the day before, stood up as soon as she saw him. Good morning, Mr. Reeves, she said nervously. Keanu gave a soft smile. Good morning, Jessica. Her eyes widened. You know my name. I make it my job to know the people who keep my building running, he said gently. His tone wasn't cold, but it wasn't light either. Rolled past the front desk and headed to the elevator, but not before nodding at the security guard near the entrance. Guard stiffened and gave a quick salute. Ryan had heard rumors spread fast. The man they thought was a random visitor in a wheelchair turned out to be the owner of the entire building. Not just the building, but the land under Iton, the trust above. Iton was watching as the elevator doors closed. Keanu thought about all the things he had seen the day before, not just broken heating vents or cracked tiles. Had seen something deeper, a sickness in the air, something quiet but cruel. It was in the way workers looked over their shoulders, and the way the cleaning lady scrubbed floors with her bare hands, and the silence of the intern who had been shouted at in front of everyone. Reached the 12th floor, and this time it didn't roll straight to the hallway. He stopped in front of the manager's office. Inside, Michael was sipping coffee from his new espresso machine. His face pale as he spotted Keanu. Stood quickly. Mr. Reeves, I sit down. Michael. Keanu Sadie's voice was calm but carried weight. Mitchell sat. Stefan Blinkunk took a long breath. Do you know what I value most? Michael shook his head slowly. People, Keanu said. Not profits, not speed, not perfect reviews, but people. Yesterday I saw people treated like they were invisible, like they were disposable. Michael opened his mouth to speak, but Keanu raised a hand. Not yet. Listen first. He pulled out a folder and placed it on the desk. Inside were reports, Fatasniches, one from the walkthrough. He had Donnie H1 showing the cracks in the system. Not the waltzed system. You docked the pay of a woman who couldn't stand for long. You mocked an intern who asked for help. You installed $1,000 espresso machine but refused to replace the broken break room microwave downstairs. Michael's lips tightened. I was trying to raise standards. You were lowering dignity, Keanu replied. Then he pouted, his eyes softer. Now I'm not firing you today, Michael, but I am giving you a choice. Say you can step aside and let someone who leads with compassion take your place here. You can stay and rebuild this place the right way from the ground up, but either way things will change starting now. Michael stared at him. Then finally whispered, I want to stay and do it right. Keanu nodded once. Then you start by apologizing to every employee you've made feel small, and I'll be watching that as a punishment, but as a second chance. Keanu rolled out of the office, leaving Michael still sitting, his espresso cold and untouched. Later that morning, Keanu called for a building-wide meeting. No one knew what to expect. Word spread quickly, and soon the main conference room was full. Janitor Sklishikentikis, the coffee cart guy who usually stood outside, came in with curiosity. Keanu wheeled himself to the front, his face calm, his voice steady. Good morning. You know, many of you didn't know who I was until yesterday, and that's okay, because today is not about who I am. It's about who you rev people who make this place run, ones who show up early, stay late, fix problems, No one season to make things happen behind the scenes. The room was silent, every eye on him. Continued from today forward, this building will operate under new values respecting these. Every employee, no matter the title, will be treated with care. He looked toward the back, where Dahlia Stooge tried to disappear into the crowd, but he smiled at her. Every cleaning staff member will receive new uniforms, new tools and chairs for rest. No more scrubbing floors on hands and knees. Dahlia's lips trembled. A tear slid down her cheek. The room clapped. Keanu raised his hand again. There will be an open door policy. With meaning, with concerns can come directly. There will also be a new internal review of all managers. If you have been mistreated, you will be hard without fear. The room clapped louder now. For the first time in a long time, hope grew in the corners of the building. After the meeting, employees began to talk. Really talked to one another. To Monagersto Kenneth shared their stories. Their struggles, and Keanu listened to every one for hours. He wheeled through the halls again, but now he was invited into rooms offered water. Thank Ed Hooged. Young woman in accounting approached him shyly. I've worked here for 3 years and no one ever asked me how I was doing. Good now. Keanu smiled. How are you doing? She laughed through tears. Better now. That evening he returned to the 12th floor. Michael stood by the elevator, waiting. His tie loosened, his eyes tired but honest. I apologized to Dahlia and the internet. The entire janitorial crew. We still have a lot to fix. Keanu nodded. One day at a time. He wheeled past and stopped at the window. The sun was setting, casting gold across the city. I thought about the chair he was in, the pain he'd endured, the fall that had almost taken him out, and now this building, this moment. It all felt connected, like every broken piece had led to this, a place to build something better, not just with bricks but with hearts. Before leaving, I rolled back to the garden terrace on the roof. Wind was cold but peaceful. A few employees had gathered there, sharing snacks. Lawing Fing and Jolcina watched them, not as their boss but as someone who knew what it meant to be unseen. Samin, who once sat in a hospital bed wondering if he'd ever be whole again, and no was building something whole for others. Didn't need to stand to let, only needed to stay present. Osito Korean to act tomorrow would bring more work, but tonight rolled home knowing thiskenness is not weakness. It is the strongest force we have. Asterisk the secret on floor Nineth. Next morning, Brookstone Plaza felt different, lighter somehow. Not because everything had changed overnight, but because people felt seen. It was in the way Jessica smiled when greeting workers, and how Michael now walked the halls with his head slightly bowed and his hands open instead of closed, and it was in the quiet joy of Dahlia, who now pushed her mop with gloves on and a new wheeled bucket beside her. KeanuReeves rolled in at 9 sharp, net with fanfare, not with cameras but with a small notebook and eyes that noticed everything. Today he planned to inspect floors 6 through 10. A silent walkthrough had become routine now, but today would be different. A day he would uncover something no one wanted him to see. On the 6th floor, he stopped by the design firm's office. Inside, a woman with short curly hair was placing sticky notes on a giant board. Her eyes lit up when she saw him. Mr. Reeves, we were hoping you'd stop by. He smiled softly. Call me Keanu, please. They offered him coffee, showed him the mural they were designing for the lobby, a tree with roots made of tiny people holding hands. Loved it and approved it. On the spot on the 7th floor, he found the break room freshly cleaned. Next, stocked microwave replaced. A small note on the wall read, kindness grows where we water. I took a photo of it. Be the 8th floor. He was Toretta's arms a kid, but he refused to stop, not when people now waited for him. With hope he reached the 9th floor and noticed something odd. The hallway was dim. A flickering light buzzed overhead, and the air smelled of bleach and something rotting. Rolled slowly. No signs, no decorations, just gray walls and locked doors. Reached a door that wasn't marked, but he heard voices arguing soft but tense. He knocked gently. Lithe door swung open. A man in a gray uniform stared at him, startled. This area's under renovation, Sir. Keanu narrowed his eyes. Why is it locked and unlisted? Just storage, the man replied quickly. But Keanu leaned forward in his chair. May I see it? The man hesitated. I'm afraid I can't let anyone in without clearance. Keanu pulled out his building access card and said, good thing I have all the clearance. There's the man's face went pale, stepped aside reluctantly. Keanu rolled in, and what he saw stopped him cold. A large room with harsh lighting, metal shelves stacked with old equipment, but in one corner sat 3 folding chairs, a small desk and a whiteboard filled with scribbled names. A list of employees, some circled, some crossed out. Next to each name were Label slow output complains. Too much slow worker. Keanu's hands tightened on his wheels. Turned to the man. What is this? It's just internal performance tracking, the man muttered. And who authorized this? The man stayed silent and quietly said Michael. Keanu left the room. Without another word, rolled back down to the lobby. His heart pounding. Mitchell was near the reception desk talking to a delivery man. Keanu called his name. Michelle turned smiling, but the smile vanished when he saw Keanu's face. Come with me. Keanu said no more. Soft voice. See no more waiting. He returned to the secret room on floor. Nina Mitchell followed silently when he saw the board have froze. Explain this. Michael swallowed hard. It was just to track performance. Sato, see who was slowing the team down. We never acted on it. Yet Keanu stared at him. You crossed out names like they were items you labeled. Pia pleaded them without asking why they might be struggling. Michael whispered, I was under pressure to increase efficiency. So you chose fear over support. Michael lowered his head. Keanu pointed to the board. Erase every name. No. Michael nodded and grabbed a clothes. He wiped each name. Keanu said softly, every person on that list has a story. Maybe their mom is sick. Maybe they work two jobs. Maybe they cry on the train ride home. And you reduced them to one word. You forgot that numbers don't build companies, people do. When the board was clean, Keanu turned to him. This room will be turned into a wellness lounge, hairspooks place to Brethand. I want a new system on where employees can ask for help, not hide in fear. Michael nodded. Yes, sir. Right away. They left the room, but the moment didn't leave Keanu's mind that night. He couldn't sleep, kept thinking about those names. Ones crossed out. What must it have felt like to be labeled, judged in secreto? He decided something, called his tech team, and asked for help. Within 3 days they launched a new internal system called ICU. It allowed any employee to write on a mouse Lido, share their struggle, your name, a kindness they witness it, or simply ask for support. Keanu read every single entry himself. Only read me, mom is sick and I've been late 3 times. But no one asked why. Another said asterisk, the janitor on floor 7 always smiles at May, was going to quit, but that smile changed my mind. Asterisk. Another reads simply asterisk, I haven't felt human in months, thank you for seeing me. Asterisk. Keanu replied to every one personal. No assistant, no script, just truth. Whoa. RD spreadin'. Soon Brookstone Plaza became known for something rare, not its location, not its success, but its heart. Reporters tried to cover it, but Keanu refused interviews. Let the people speak. At me. One morning Dahlia brought him a cup of tea. We used to be shadows, but now we shine. He smiled. You always shinned. The rest of us just finally looked up. The elevator that stopped storm came without warning, not outside but inside Brookstone Plaza. A Tuesday morning as Keanu Reeves rolled into the building, like he always did, smiling quietly, holding his notebook. There was a feeling in the airtight, like breath held too long. He didn't know yet, but something was about to happen that would test everything he had built so far. Took the elevator up to the 8th floor. He had a meeting with the wellness team, but halfway up the elevator stopped. It shook. On Seth and froze. Keanu pressed the buttons. Nothing. Waited, then calmly pressed the emergency call. No answer. Then the lights flickered. A hard silence followed, and then everything went darnot. Just the elevator. The entire building black. Kukwin sat in the stillness, in the silence, feeling the air thicken around him. Wasn't afraid of the dark, but he was trapped. No movement, no way out. Minutes passed. Maybe longer. Breathed slow. I closed his eyes. Then sudden lie. The emergency speaker clicked on. Sir, are you all right? It was Jessica's voice, crackling but steady. Yes, Keanu replied. Just stuck. What happened? Power grid failure across the block. Backup generators failed to start. Ray trying to fix it. Keanu nodded, though she couldn't see it. How are the people downstairs? A little panic. Desperately, the ones in the sublevels. But we're managing. Keanu gripped the arms of his chair. Keep everyone calm. Michael to go floor by floor and check every room. There was a pause. Michael's not here, sir. Left early for a personal matter. Keanu exhaled slowly. Okay. Then it's on you. Update me every 5 minutes. The line cut off again. Keanu sat Alan trapped between floors, but his mind wasn't stuck. Started thinking of everyone else in the building. Dahlia interns knew. Hiresh remembered how fear could creep in when no one felt in charge, and how calm could spread if even one person stayed grounded. Then from the corner of the elevator he noticed a panel slightly ajar. Reached over, straining his arm, and popped it open. Inside was a small manual crank system. Emergency use online. Stared at Ethan, reached into his backpack, pulled out a small wrench he carried, now part of his physical therapy Tulsh began to turn the crank slowly. His arms shook, his shoulders burned a bit. The elevator began to move inch by inch, floor by floor. Finale doors opened on the 5th floor. Light poured in from the emergency window nearby, rolled out sweet on his brow, but focus in his eyes. People stood in the hallway, confused. Werbs flying. Raised his hand. Every own stay calm. We've had a power failure, but we are in this together. Someone said, aren't you stuck upstairs? He smiled. Not anymore. He wheeled past them, checked the rooms, checked the restroom, checked the stairwell doors. Everything secure. Then he made it to the lobby. Jessica ran to him. Sir, the elevators are all out. Emergency systems failing fast. Should we evacuate? Keanu looked around. Hundreds of pleno power, no elevator. Some disabled, some elderly, some afraid. He shook his head. Not yet. Evacuation would cause panic. We stay calm. We'll solve this. He rolled to the service room, checked the backup generator himself, saw the problem, a faulty switch. Reset it. Nothing. Looked again and remembered something an older maintenance worker once told him. The panel had a bypass wire hiddenly used in rare cassette. Found it. He did reset the switch. Building hummed. Lights flickered back. Cheers echoed down the halls. People clapped and hugged. Keanu just sat back in his chair. Quit watching the light. Return. Mitchell returned an hour later, panting, confused. What happened? Jessica turned to him. The owner fixed the power. Be himself. Michael's face drop it. Approached Keanu. I'm sorry, sir, I should have. Keanu raised a hand. Just be present next time. Titles don't matter during crisis-only actions do. Michael nodded. Yes, sir. The next day, Keanu called another building-wide meeting, this one in the open plaza outside. Under the clear sky, he stood this time not in a chair but slowly with crutches. His first time standing since the surgery. People gasped, but he steadied himself and spoke loud and clear. Yesterday we faced a storm, not from the sky but from within, and what I saw was community parentas helping people, and that's more powerful than any generator. He said again gently and smiled. So from today forward we're starting a new program. When the lights go out, a training that prepares everyone for crisis but also for kindness. Beckhouse, even in the dark, can still see each other. Applause filled the airnet for him, but for the message. And that night as Keanu rolled through the halls, once Marie passed room 509, a young employee poked his head out. Sir, I ask something? Keanu stopped. Of course. Why didn't you just leave? You in the building got dark. You could have waited for help. Keanu thought for a moment and said, because sometimes when you're stuck in the dark, you don't wait for rescue. You become the light. The investor with cold ice. A week after the blackout, Keanu Reeves sat in his office on the 12th floor. The room was quiet as crutches leaned against the wall and his wheelchair beside the window. Sunlight poured in, but his thoughts were clouded. Jessica entered with a letter in her hand. So you have a visitor scheduled for 11. Preston Roth from Summit Holdings. Keanu raised his eyes. Slow. That name was familiar. Summit Holdings had tried to buy Brookstone Plaza 2 years. Agatha had offered a massive check, but he had refused, not because the money wasn't good but because he knew what they would do to the building strip. It got internet into a cold profit machine. Nodded. Thank you. Jessica and him, and when he arrives at 11 sharp, the elevator dinged and a tall man stepped out. Silver hair, a sharp suite, a briefcase that probably cost more than most people's rent. This handshake was hard as smile. Fake. Mr. Reeves, always a pleasure. Keanu gestured to the chair across from him. Mr. Rothto, what do I owe the visit? Roth opened his case, laid out folder, slids, nooms, charts. You've made waves with your new approach. Employees are posting online. There's even talk of your building being a case study for ethical leadership. But trends don't last forever, and kindness doesn't always pay, so we're offering again. We want to buy the plaza, triple the original offer. Keanu listened, then leaned back. Why now? Because the spotlight is on you, and the world loves stories that end. Let us take over. Put your name on a foundation. Let us run the place while you get back to film. You've done enough. Keanu stood slowly, his legs shaking slightly, but he stood tall. No. Roth blinked. Excuse me, I said no. Keanu repeated, this building isn't for sale because it was never about property, it was about people. And no number, no offer can replace what we've built here. Roth's smile faded. He gathered his folders. You'll regret this. The world forgets good men fast. Keanu replied gently. Then let me remind them, one act at a time. The door closed behind Roth, and Keanu sat down. Agnes, hands trembling not from fear but from holding steady, had made the hard choice again. The next day, Rummers spread. Summit Holdings was furious. They began Pressuring the board, calling investors, sleeking stories, whispers flew through the building. What if Keanu loses the company? Wet if we get new boss? Mood drop. Adalia stopped humming. During her round, young intern avoided eye contact. Evan Michael walked with tight shoulders. Again, Keanu felt the shift, called an emergency town hall meeting. This time in the underground event space, hundreds of employees gathered. Nervouswit stood at the front still with a cane, but his voice clear. I know you've heard the noise of that. I was offered money to walk away to sell the plaza and let others take control. He pouted, then said, I said no. Gasps filled the room. Raised his hand. I said no, because this place is not for sale. Not the bricks, not the hearts inside, not the mission. They want you to think kindness is weak, that empathy is naive. I've seen more strength in one janitor with a mop than in 100 men with shiny pens. Applauseris Ingletter continued. They may try to scare us, but let them, because we're not just workers in a building where familiar families fight for each other. We've been through storms, we've been through dark, and still we're here. Tears-filled eyes. Across the room a voice from the back shouted, we've got your back, Keanu. Another you changed my life, and another you made this a home. He smiled, hand to chest. Then let's protect it together. After the meeting, employees gathered in. Graupshug shard storyist fear started to fade. A hope returned. But the pressure outside increased. Summit Holdings began legal move challenging permits, disputing ownership, and one day they sent someone new. A woman named Alicia Roth's legal hedge requested a private meeting with Keanu. Agreed. They met in the rooftop garden. One Keanu had renovated himself. Alicia sat on the bench, stone-faced. They won't stop, you know, they'll take it piece by piece. Usually you're tired. Keanu leaned on his cane. Then they'll be waiting a long time, because this building doesn't run on fear anymore. It runs on belief, and belief is stubborn. Alicia softened just slightly. You really care, don't you? He looked at her. Don't you? She didn't answer, but when she stood to leave, said, I'll delay the next Filingani week. Use it well. And then she walked away. Next morning, Keanu rolled in early before the sun placed something on every desk in the building. The note, handwritten, read asterisk I see you, I thank you, and we keep going asterisk. Dahlia found hers first, then the young intern, then Michael, and by noon the building glowed again, because they all remembered they weren't just employees. They were the reason Keanu stayed, and the reason Brookstone stood strong. The day the world watched, the sun rose slowly over Brookstone Plaza. Light hit the glass windows just right, as if the building itself was waking up with purpose. Death energy was different, focused, hopeful. Beckhouse today was the day they had prepared. Fourth final legal hearing between Keanu Reeves and Summit Holdings. Outside the courthouse, cameras gathered. Reporters whispered. Bloggers live streamed. Story had become national news. Actor fights billion-dollar firm to protect a building of kindness. People wanted to know if this would be another story where kindness lost to power. But inside the courtroom, Keanu sat in his wheelchair beside Michael Jessicodley, 3 employees who asked to speak on his behalf. The judge, an older man with clear eyes and a calm tone, looked over the documents. On the other side sat Preston Roth, stone-faced, arms crossed at his team, sharp and cold. The judge began. Mr. Reeves, I claim ownership over Brookstone Plaza, but Summit Holdings challenges your authority based on technicalities. Per we proceed. Wold you like to make a statement? Keanu nodded, then rolled forward. It didn't hold paper, it didn't read a speech, just looked up and spoke from the heart. Your Honor, Brookstone Plaza is not just glass and concrete, it's peeplights. Story sits healing its home. He paused, then continued. I didn't buy that building to make money, bought it because I saw people working in silence, in pain, without being seen, and I wanted to change that. So I showed up every day in a wheelchair with a notebook, and I listened. He saw names crossed off walls, employees being judged without kindness, and I erased those names, but not those people. Beckhouse, they matter, every one of them. The judge watched him closely. Keanu added, Summit Holdings offered me money to walk away, more than enough to live forever, but I said no, because there are some things money cannot buy, and dignity is one of them. He rolled back slowly. Then Dahlia stood, hands shaking but eyes steady before Mr. Reeves. Clean floors with bare hands. No breaks, no thanks. He was invisible, saw me, and made me feel human. Again applause started, but the judge raised a hand and nodded. Thank you, Miss Dahlia. Then the young intern came forward, his voice cracked but strong. I was going to quit after being shouted at in front of everyone. I thought I wasn't good enough. But then Mr. Reeves told me my voice mattered. It didn't just protect the building, it protected us. Then Jessica spoke. I was a receptionist with no face, just a voice, but now we greet people with pride because I know I'm part of something rare. The judge looked over at Summit Holdings. Does your side wish to respond? Roth stood tight, smile. Your Honor will respect Mr. Reeves's vision, but emotions cannot govern business rule. Escortatrix are what build sit yesnet feelings. The judge nodded slowly, then looked down at his papers. After several long moments he spoke. What you've all said today matters deeply, and while courts often deal with numbers, I see something more important. Truth. Have reviewed the contracts and all controlling interest belongs to Mr. Reeves. Summit Holdings challenge is hereby denied. Brookstone Plaza remains under his ownership. Case closed. The room erupted. People clapped, hugged, and Jessica broke down in happy sobs. Dahlia whispered, "We did it." Michael shook Keanu's hand and said, "Thank you for giving us back our voice." Outside reporters swarmed, but Keanu only said one sentence, "Kindness is not a weakness, it's a revolution." He didn't stay for interview. She returned to Brookstone Plaza, and something waited for him there. When he rolled in, hundreds of employees were gathered in the lobby, and above them a giant banner hung across the ceiling, painted in every color with 5 simple words: "Stayed when no one did." Then Jessica walked forward and said, "We have something for you." She held a from inside it a hand-drawn picture of Keanu in his wheelchair with all the employees behind him, sunflowers growing from the wheels, and above it all a quote written in gold ink. Q rolled in quietly and changed everything. Keanu's eyes filled with tears. Didn't speak, couldn't, but everyone clapped, not for a boss, not for a celebrity, but for a man who saw them. Woe fought for the man. Stayed. Weeks that followed were filled with joy. The rooftop garden expanded. The wellness room opened. Its name's wall was replaced with a gratitude wall where employees could leave notes for each author. Own said, "Thank you for covering my shift when my son was sick." Another said, "You made me laugh when I wanted to cry." And one said, Mr. Reeves, you changed my life just by showing up. Brookstone Plaza became more than a workplace site, became a symbol of what happens when leadership is human, when kindness is policy, and when someone in a wheelchair rolls into a room not to take but to give. Yon evening, Keanu sat alone on the rooftop watching the lights bellow. Dahlia joined him for a moment and said, "Do you ever miss the spotlight?" Camera asked crowds. He smiled gently. "I think I was always meant to be quiet, but not invisible." She nodded. "You've given us something more than a job. You gave us family." He looked out over the city and whispered, "And you gave me purpose." The wind blew soft, lithe banner from earlier now folded neatly. In his laugh traced the words with his fingers. Stayed when no one did. Hadn't, because he did the all could.